All right, shalom, everybody. Today, I want to talk to you guys about Passover and to share with you what the Lord has taught me about Passover in the last few years. And it's just been an amazing journey to follow him, to follow Yeshua, and to understand his love for Passover and what it means for our time, why it's important to celebrate it, and why it's important for everybody. And yeah, I'm just going to start today with going back to a story in my book, Awestruck by Glory. The whole book ends with this great Passover that was a reality for us that happened in 2015. And in 2015, the Lord gave me a dream in November, and he had just saved us. We were just saved only a few years, and we had come out of great darkness. We never would have made it without him. We were slaves. That means when you're slaves that you don't come out by yourself, that you need God to do a miracle for you. And that's really the situation I was in. And then we were miraculously saved out of that. And then God asked us to celebrate Passover. And you might say, why Passover? What's feast? Well, I'm going to share this with you just from the heart. I don't even have my notes ready. I'm just going to share it with you from the heart. And this whole journey with Passover started in 2015 when the Lord gave me a dream in November and said, I woke up and there was a lady in my dream, and she said, you need to start organizing Passover now. And otherwise, everybody's agenda is full. And I was like, why would I do that? And I woke up and I knew it was from the Lord. I said, Lord, why would I start celebrating Passover, organizing it in November? This is 5 months. And I saw exactly, it was exactly 5 months away from the actual date of Passover. And then I said, Lord, why is this important? And then he said to me it would be 400 people. And I thought, wow. And I thought, Lord, why? If it's 400 people, that would be such a big Passover. Then I got to get my whole agenda. Everything has to go for the whole winter. And I got to spend all my time organizing Passover, right? I had to just change everything. If you want me to do that, Lord, I need a big confirmation, right? That's only, you do that if God tells you to. And so I prayed that out loud. And a few hours later, I got a phone call from my mom in America. And she's been a believer for many years. And she also was Messianic. And she had that night, for the first time in her life, she had a dream. She said, I've been in church for 25 years, and I've never, ever dreamt. She's not a dreamer. She says, but I had this dream and I saw all these people sitting at tables, and it was in Holland, and they were all beautifully set. Now, my mom, she didn't know I had this dream, but the Lord gave her a dream in the same night that I had a dream about Passover 2015. It was absolute miracle. 2 dreams in 2 different countries, right? So I knew it was from the Lord. And I said, okay, Lord, we will do this. And I got in touch with a friend of mine, and we started organizing things. And we worked really hard. And many people around us started getting dreams as well. All of a sudden, the dreams were everywhere. People in the church who'd never had dreams had dreams. And I had dreams, and we counted in together. I don't remember the exact, I think it was like 14 different dreams in 7 different people in 3 different countries, or 4 different countries, all throughout this Passover. And it came from all different directions. And we knew it was following Yeshua's heart. It was a total miracle. And we worked really hard because we felt the Lord's desire to bring his church together at his table, that to bring the people of all the different denominations, his children, that they would bless one another at his table. And we also felt this was a special night. It was on the 3rd of April. And some people believe that that was the same time that Yeshua was crucified. It's another story. We're not going to get into the whole which date it was exactly here. But anyway, it was also on the night of the super blood moon of 2015. There was a whole many super blood moons that year. And this was one of the first ones. It was amazing. And so it was incredible. And then we also had, anyway, there was a lot of other things that were just going on about this night. And we realized God is doing something incredible. And he called us to bring his church together, mostly people that had never celebrated Passover ever in their life. And we were the only Jewish family because we were just saved by Yeshua. And we had to organize this. And it was just incredible throughout the time. But the thing is, we thought we had it all under control. We organized. And 1.5 months before the event took place, everything fell through. The whole location fell through. It stopped. And I call it, it's going through the Red Sea. It stops. It's the enemy came against us so much and just tore it all apart. And we were on our knees. We were on our knees asking God, Lord, why? Why is this? Why could you give us something that's impossible to do? Because the enemy was trying everything to stop us from organizing this Passover. And it was so hard. And it was like going through the Red Sea. It was like we were literally living the Exodus through it. And the interesting thing is that it was even connected to the parashas, where we were actually connected with the things that the people were reading. You can read all about it in my book, Awestruck by Glory. But it's an amazing testimony for Yeshua. So then finally, we started after that to suddenly, I prayed. I said, Lord, if this is from you, we need a miracle. I can't do it. Only you can do this. And then we had one last chance. And my friend said, come over. I've got maybe a caterer who can talk to you. And these two guys walk into the room and they said, we're from Exodus Events. Can you believe it? We're from Exodus Events. And I looked at them. I said, are you ready to organize the greatest Exodus Holland ever had? And they were like, what? And they knew how to do Passover. And within a week, we suddenly had a place where we could do it, but it wasn't in the fancy restaurant what we thought it was. It was in a swimming pool gym. And we had to transform the entire thing within a few weeks. We had to turn this gym into the kingdom of heaven, like a beautiful, beautiful throne room. And we thought, how can we do that? And suddenly Yeshua, God used all his kingdom, started to come together. Everybody had time to help us. Every single person we knew all around. There was a lady that started sewing everything. And there was people like Antine, who is here, who came with her husband, and they did so much. They did a lot of all the audio and all the things. And suddenly we had volunteers coming in to organize all there was everything we needed started in place, and it went so fast. And finally, the tickets went online. Can you imagine, for 400 people, you're organizing a Passover and you only have something, your tickets go online 3 weeks before? They were sold out within a week, completely. And we didn't have much even more after that. It was such a great miracle. And then once we were through that Red Sea, the Lord just started blessing us. And he sent people everywhere to help us. But me and my husband, we were the only Jews that were there. And there was 400 Christians from all different denominations looking at us going, how do we celebrate Passover? What do you think we should do? And didn't, my husband has not grown up with all the prayers. He hasn't, his father was an atheist and he didn't have all the traditions like many people did. So he doesn't know the prayers. He said to me, what am I going to do? I don't know the Passover prayers. And here we got all these Christians looking at us. And he doesn't like doing that anyway. He said, we need to pray for other Jewish people who can come and help us lead this Passover. And we started praying. And the next day, oh no, it was 2 days before the Passover, 2 days, I get a phone call from an Israeli. And he says in this deep, beautiful voice, he says, hi, my name is Yishai Shabtai. I'm a 17th generation Jerusalemite, and I came to know Yeshua supernaturally. Can I please come and celebrate Passover with you? And he spoke Hebrew like beautiful. And we were so amazed because he was exactly the kind of person that could help my husband too. And I asked him, I said, well, do you know the Passover prayers? And he says, yes, I learned them as a child from somebody in our house, an orphanage house that was in the tree. A rabbi in a tree taught me everything, taught me the whole Passover Seder. And I've never met anybody like him who knew the Passover blessings more than him. It was so amazing. And in the same week, something very interesting happened. The same week, I went to a church and I sat and I was tired. We were so tired because it was really hard work. We had to give up everything, And I sat and suddenly the pastor came to me and said, do you want to help translate? And I was not in the mood, but okay, let's do it. And I went and I sat in the back and with these new people and I had to translate Dutch into English. And I asked them, I said, where are you from? And they said, well, we're from Iran. Iran? I said, what are you doing here? They said, well, we just came to know Yeshua, Jesus, and we came to know him through dreams. And he came to us as a man in white, and he said to us, follow me. And I looked, I said, that's incredible because that's the same dreams I had. That's the same men, and they described the exact same person. Here were the Iranians having dreams of Yeshua, and we were having dreams of Yeshua, and we met the same person. It was the same person. It was amazing. And the Lord put us together as Israelis and Iranians that evening. And I said, because they loved Israel. They were very excited about Israel. And I said, have you ever celebrated Passover? Do you want to celebrate Passover with us? And they came. They were the greatest help to putting us together. And they sat in the front with us, these two Iranians, and Israelis and Iranians were blessing one another. It was like a prophetic act. It was so much beautiful. There was washing of feet, and we were blessing one another. And it was like Yeshua was saying, I'm prophesying true peace only comes through him. True peace happens through him, no matter what happens. And interestingly, that same night, did you know that the first nuclear deal that Obama signed with Iran, it's that horrible deal where everything started with, remember? That was signed in that night, on the 3rd of April, 2015, under a blood moon. And it was like the enemy was already making plans for Israel and Iran to be at war. But we were together with Yeshua, blessing one another, showing that true peace is possible through him. And it was like a declaration, a prophetic act for the future. And I believe it has a lot to do with these times that we are living in. Because now, of course, Iran and Israel are so much at war. And the Lord is saying his peace will come out of this. Only through him will true peace come. Anyway, I got to share with you the last part of this amazing Passover, because in the end, the church came, 400 people, and it was like entering the throne room. We had decorated the place to look like it was like the inside of the temple, because we were like, how do we decorate such a place? Well, we took pictures of the inside of the temple and we made these cloths, and within a week somebody had made beautiful golden red cloths, and it looked just like the inside of the temple. And we had and it was flowers everywhere. It was just beautiful. And that night when we were finished, 2 Jewish men were visited by Yeshua in their dreams. Eliyahu, my husband, and Yeshai Shabtai. The next morning, they both woke up and they had a visitation from him. It was just, and what Yeshua told them, that's, you got to read the book about that, or talk to him. So, but anyway, it was an amazing, amazing miracle. And because Yeshua was there, he was able to lead my husband through all the prayers, and we were able to, it's a learning to trust the Lord with these things. And he showed us it was his feast, and Yeshua showed us it was his desire. And the one scripture that he gave to me in November, when I first started out organizing that, was the scripture of Luke 22:15. Luke 22:15, where he says, I have deeply and earnestly desired to celebrate this Passover with you. And he doesn't say it once. He says, I have eagerly desired. This is like the deepest desire that Yeshua, Jesus says. In the Passion Translation, it says, with great passion have I longed to celebrate this and desire. That is so deep for Yeshua's heart. He longs to celebrate this with you. And you know what's interesting? Because many parts of the New Testament in the churches, they are teaching many parts, of course, of the things that happened in Yeshua's life. They're all important for us, for the believers. In all 4 of the Gospels, all 4 of them, Yeshua calls his disciples to organize Passover. And in fact, in most of the Gospels, it's quite a large part of them. And, it becomes what people call the Last Supper, but it was Passover. It was Passover at that time. And he celebrated it a day early on Thursday, I'm not going to go into the days, but he celebrated it a day earlier because he would become the Passover lamb. And he said, I cannot wait to celebrate this cup with you again in the kingdom of heaven later. He's calling his disciples to celebrate Passover. Now, Passover was celebrated by all of the first disciples until the year 325, when Constantine changed the calendar. And he didn't want people celebrating Passover because it was related to the Jews, because he didn't want anything to do with the Jews because they were the rebels. So he just said, you are no longer allowed to celebrate Passover. In fact, he made it illegal for the church to celebrate Passover. And he changed it completely and said, you have to do it on my date, the Sundays, my calendar. And it became Easter, which is a totally different story. And actually, with the Good Friday and Easter story, it's a long story, but that is a completely different kind of way of celebrating. Because what is Passover, right? Passover is a memorial of setting the slaves free, of what God has done, of going through an exodus. And we remember the Exodus itself of the slaves coming out of Egypt, but we also remember what Yeshua has done for us on that day. And I actually also believe that when the Lord said to us, do this in remembrance of me, he wasn't only just mentioning it for communion. He was saying, do also Passover for me. Celebrate it by thinking of what he had done. When we celebrate it, it's like the really going into sharing with him in the suffering, thinking about what he had done, spending the whole evening describing how God saved us. And it's incredible that that freedom is decreed over Passover. Actually, on Passover, we are declaring the blood of the Lamb over our, and we do it with 4 cups. It's like I tell people, it's communion times 10. But then we do it all together with a lot of people at the same table. Instead of just doing communion with 1 or 2 people, we're doing it in unity at God's table with a lot of people. And at the same time as we are declaring taking the blood, we're also telling the testimony of how God set us free, the testimony of Yeshua himself, the testimony of the Exodus and the testimony of Yeshua. This is what Revelation 12:11 says. We will defeat the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the words of our testimony. We love not our life. We defeat the enemy by the blood, by decreeing the blood and telling the testimony of Yeshua. His testimony is the most powerful testimony there is. And we tell his story, and we can tell it to people, all our generations, all our families. So we tell the story of the Exodus, and we also tell the story of Yeshua. Now, in the Torah, in Deuteronomy, it actually gives 5 things. The Lord gives us 5 things which he tells us to do for Passover. One of them is remember the blood of the Lamb, right? The other one is tell the story. Tell the story of what you've done. The other one is take the bitter herbs. Why? Because it helps you remember where you come from. Remember the time of slavery. Remember all that. Remember that you came out, that God saved you with great miracles. And the other, let me just remember the blood. I'm doing this by heart now. Tell the story, blood of the Lamb. Eat of the lamb. You need to eat of the lamb, partake of the lamb itself, and eat of the matzah. That's the 5th one. Eat of the bread of life. Why? To remember what God has done. And all of these tell the whole story. And actually, what we're doing on Passover when we have a Seder meal, we are actually with food in the physical world telling the testimony of how God set us free, both for the spiritual part and the physical part. It's called also in the Bible, it's part of an Exodus. So I want to explain to you guys what an Exodus is. An Exodus is where the time when first there is people in slavery that they cannot get out whatsoever. There's no way, it's impossible. Man has put himself in a place where they cannot escape by themselves. And then God comes in and does mighty signs and wonders and saves them out with, often in the Bible, it's called his righteous right arm. He pulls them out in a miraculous way. And they are rescued, totally rescued miraculously by the Lord. And that's what we celebrate, of course, when we think about the story of Moses. When he is in Egypt, we know the Israelites, they would not have come out without God's help. Only God could do it. And he did great signs and wonders for them. That was the first Exodus that was recorded in the Bible. with the Israelites coming out. But did you know that there are 8 Exoduses actually in the Bible, 8 Passovers? Incredible. So the other Passovers are when once they came out of Egypt, they, of course, they had to celebrate that. They had to celebrate the blood of the lamb, and they came out of Egypt. And but before they took the promised land, right before they went in and took they also took their inheritance. They also celebrated Passover. The Lord told Joshua to celebrate Passover before Jericho went down. And he did. And after that came the great breakthrough, just like, it was with the breakthrough of the Red Sea. And many people actually believe in Judaism, they believe that the breakthrough of the Red Sea happened on the same day that the walls of Jericho fell down. So that is the last day of the 8th day of Passover. It's actually the 7th day. That the 7th day is the great day when the walls, when it fell, when the Red Sea opened and the walls of Jericho fell down. Amazing. I call that day breakthrough day, including the 7th, from the 7th to the 8th day of Passover. It's just incredible. Yeah, so there are 8 Passovers. I'm just going to mention a few of them, but we're also talking about the Passover of Gideon celebrates Passover, Hezekiah and Josiah, and in between they did not celebrate much. That's what many people think. And the Ezra, the book of Ezra, when the Jews come back into the land, the first thing the Lord tells them to do, again, they were set free from slavery out of Babylon. And the Lord brought them miraculously into the land. And what did the Lord do? Celebrate Passover. And then of course, we know the greatest Exodus ever. This is the biggest defeat, because in every Exodus, there is always a defeat of the enemies in each one of them. So the greatest Exodus ever was when Yeshua, the Son of God, came down and defeated the ultimate enemy, the Pharaoh, Satan himself, forever, and set the spiritual captives free, all of us. And he rose again from the dead after that, defeated Satan completely. And because of that, we are no longer slaves to fear. We are able to be set free. It's the same kind of thing. And so I call that the greatest Exodus ever happened when Yeshua sat on the cross. That's what we remember. It's the same kind of thing. And the Lord always does it with great signs and wonders and miracles and breakthroughs in order to set the captives free. And after that, there is another, of course, great Exodus, which happens for each and every one of us when we come to know the Lord. When we are saved, we go through our own Exodus, because God pulls us out of the kingdom of darkness as slaves into the kingdom of light. And most of us know that when that happened, it happened with a struggle, because the enemy doesn't want it. The enemy comes after you, and the Lord does it with great signs and wonders, setting his people free. And the last Exodus is also the Exodus of the book of Revelation. Many people actually believe in the end times we're also part of this Exodus. We're part of that same kind of thing. And other Exodus that happen that show how God works are, for example, 1948 with the state of Israel being created. And it happened right after the Holocaust, which was the worst slavery that ever happened in the physical world. And right after that, the Lord saved Israel and brought them back and gave them their inheritance. What an amazing thing it is. So this shows that it's kind of like a cycle. It's a cycle that happens of freedom. And when we celebrate Passover, we are celebrating that cycle. We're celebrating the Lord's victory over people, over the enemy. And let me just, during this big Passover that I described in the beginning, that the Lord showed us to do, we got to know the heart of Yeshua, and everything started happening miraculously. It's like the power came back. I honestly believe that in 325, when Constantine changed the dates and told the church not to celebrate Passover, that's when the power left the church. Because it goes together with celebrating things on his time. And the word, of course, says, the Bible says very clearly, this is his feast, his celebration. And it's the feast of the Father. And I always say, many Christians say, yeah, but I follow Jesus. Well, Jesus, Yeshua, he's the Son of God. Of course he celebrates Passover with his Father. He says very clearly, he honors his Father. He does what he does what he sees the Father doing. He will be celebrating Passover in heaven. And I don't think in the future that when we are in heaven, somehow we're not going to be celebrating two different kind of feasts. It's not going to be like the Jews sitting on one side celebrating with Yeshua on Passover, and then the Christians over there celebrate another time on Easter. No, it will be we will be celebrating with Yeshua. He'll be celebrating that. How incredible is that? And I pray that people will understand that it's not just the feast also of the Moses and the Exodus, it is more. It is the celebration of Yeshua's victory and going with him through it, decreeing the blood of Yeshua over it. And that's when the power also comes back. We saw that. We had, unbelievable the amount of dreams and things that happened during that time for us. One of the dreams he gave me in January 2015, on the 5th of January, he gave me a dream, and he showed me a silver plate, and on it was a bunch of white glory. And he handed it to me. And he said to me, I am giving you a plate of glory. One drop is enough for a nation. Distribute my glory. I will redeem my people soon. It was so beautiful. It was a promise of salvation for Israel. And it was also a promise, also referral again to celebrating Passover together with the church, that we will all come together and that his glory would come as it comes down. And that's why I'm one of the reasons I'm so excited, of course, about it all. But there's something else. I also learned that celebrating Passover is one of the biggest things you can do in spiritual warfare. And the church hasn't been doing that. I believe in communion. I celebrate communion almost every day. We can do communion, absolutely. But celebrating Passover is different because we do it communion times 10. We are celebrating it together with many people, and it's God's feast, and we are decreeing the blood 4 times. And this is the difference. We're telling the story at the same time, making it physical for our family and friends, telling them about how to be set free. So, and you're decreeing, actually, I believe it's a prophecy over your family and friends when you start doing that you're decreeing freedom over them. And I had a dream at that same time during that big Passover where I saw a plate and I saw a sword on the plate, this huge, beautiful silver sword. And the Lord showed me that this is like the ultimate defeating of the enemy. It's trampling on the enemy. It's saying to the Pharaoh to go. It is so important for believers because many of them are still being attacked from all sides, and so many things are happening. And what I said, guys, start celebrating Passover times 10. Decree the blood of Yeshua over your family and friends. Do it on God's time. That's the difference. Also, we're doing it on his divine time. Communion we can do every day as a connection to the Lord, but Passover is God's divine time. It's a timing thing. And it's also a time of the Lord showed me also, it's a time of understanding the breakthrough that he gives over the enemy, that he breaks through. This is his time of breakthrough, because that's when the slaves were set free. That's when the Exodus happened. That's when they went through the Red Sea. That's when Jericho, the walls came down on the last day of Passover. Can you imagine? It's pretty incredible. And we're praying for break, but let's do it on God's time, because we know then that it's real. So definitely all those people praying for Israel, I pray that we will also pray for the hostages to be set free, that many of the slaves will be set free, and that should happen now. God will break through, because especially when it looks impossible. See, an Exodus only happens when it looks impossible. And we know that most breakthroughs have to be a breakthrough because there's something impossible. And we are all dealing with something impossible in our lives that we're thinking, oh, it's no way can it happen. But when it looks impossible, God can do it. And then the miracle is that it goes to him. He does it and not us. And as an archaeologist, I want to say something extra about this, because many scientists are trying to make the miracles of the Exodus small. They're trying to say, well, the Red Sea was in this part of Egypt, or it just happened because the water went in a certain way, or there was a small plague, there was a little thing. There's a lot of stories of people undermining the story of the Exodus. And what they are doing is actually undermining the miracles. And that when you start undermining the miracles of God, it lowers the faith of people. People start not trusting anymore. And what in Passover, what we are supposed to do on Passover is make his miracles great. We're supposed to just tell the story, tell how miraculous it is, so every generation will know that they could, where the freedom is. So every generation will have the faith to know who to call. This is the Passover. Let's make God's great miracles great again. That's what I love. We got to just decree every miracle, and instead of making them smaller and like humanizing them or scientifically trying to explain them, make them bigger, because God is so amazing and he will do it. He will break through, and he did break through. That's just he is the God of the impossible, who will break through. Even in our situation in Israel, I know he will break through. And for any situation that you are in, if it looks impossible, he will break through eventually. Pray, but also celebrate Passover with your family so that your family will know how to find freedom. So this is the most special time for you actually to tell the gospel to your family, because you can actually tell the whole story through the food and through the Exodus. You tell the story, and at the same time, you tell what happened to Yeshua that night. What happened to, just explain what happened to him, how he was crucified on Passover, how he's the Lamb of God, how he was rose again. This is the night to tell the story. And it's just incredible. So I have one last thing I want to share with you before I'm going to close off. Just a minute. Yeah. I prayed yesterday about, I said, Lord, this Passover this year is very hard with Iran and everything that's happening in Israel. So what is your heart, your word for this Passover? And you know what? The words immediately, the words just started jumping out. It's a miracle. He starts speaking then. When we are living on his time, he starts speaking. The words just jumping more. He always can. Of course, he will always. He's always with us every minute of the day. But this is God's time. It's his timing. And I felt him so close. And I want to read to you the words that he gave me for this Passover. He said, "It is finished." I paid the price for peace. Real peace only goes through me. For I have defeated the darkness and trampled the enemy. It was the greatest victory ever. But there was a price for peace. I laid down my life for you so the devil would be defeated. And my peace is everlasting because the ultimate enemy was defeated. I will bring more peace as many come to know me. But let my peace reign in your heart. I am the Prince of Peace. Because I defeated the enemy and God's glory is in me. My kingship is forever. Come into my peace and let my people walk in it. They are hurt. They are continually attacked by an enemy that comes back every single generation. But there is a way to bring peace. Messiah conquered the enemy by defeating death and the stronghold of spiritual darkness. And there is no peace if the enemy keeps coming back all the time. But spiritual peace has to be made in each person. And I have to bring peace to their souls. And just a minute. And he also said, just a minute. Let my people know. He didn't say, let my people go. He said, let my people know. Let my people know where the ultimate peace is. And these were the words, and I think they're very much relevant for Israel today. Because we know here in Israel, there is an enemy going on. And in Israel, we know more than ever right now that you cannot let an enemy just stay. You cannot, because if you do, you give them permission and they come and destroy you. Just like what happened with Hamas and what's happening with Iran. Because if Israel, what would happen if Israel just allowed it and stopped fighting? And what if they didn't stop? The enemy will come back much stronger. And that enemy wants to destroy Israel completely. That's the difference. So they have to fight. But that peace, so Israel knows everything about having to fight an enemy. But the truth is the Messiah, Yeshua, he defeated, what he's saying is he defeated the ultimate enemy, the enemy that is behind every war, the enemy that is behind Iran, the enemy that is behind Hamas. Because why does it come back why does that spirit of Amalek always come back? Yeshua had to defeat the darkness first. He had to die 2,000 years ago so that the enemy would be defeated, so that his kingship would be everlasting, would be forever. And that if he wouldn't have done that, then he couldn't be a real Messiah, because he would have died and the enemy would have the devil would have come against him. Imagine he would have been a human being without having to defeat the enemy, what many rabbis think he would be. But he would be like King Solomon, a great king and conqueror. But the thing is, the devil would always come against him. Solomon fell at the end of his reign. He didn't. Many of the kings of Israel all fell at the end of it because the devil came against them. But Messiah, in order to create real peace, had to conquer the enemy. He had to defeat the devil himself, so that the devil would not be able to come against people. And therefore he gave his life for us. On a Passover night, he became the lamb, and his blood set the captives free. And I think that is the ultimate message in this time for Israel, is that his peace will come. And we need to pray, really, that people understand that the peace of Messiah will come. All right. I want to close off here, everybody, and I want to really say to you, Chag Sameach, Passover, Sameach. Here in the Galilee, we're going to have a beautiful Passover this year. And God did it again. He did a great miracle. If you want to know more about Passover and our story, which I talked about before, then I suggest that you read my book, Awestruck by Glory. And you can get it on Amazon or in any Christian bookstores or in America, anywhere online. It tells my whole testimony. And the second part of this book is all about Passover, the whole Passover story. And come to think of it, I want to read a part from it because it's so touching. And this will be the last thing that I close from it. I want to read to you the promise the Lord gave me for the Jewish people and for Israel after Passover, because we kept getting dreams. It says on page 206, I had a dream and I saw two people kneeling before Yeshua. He had his hands on their heads and blessed them. I could not see their faces. Then Yeshua said, "Come, my children, come. Follow me through the Red Sea. Come and I will lead you through the greatest exodus ever, and I will set you free." Those are the words he gave me. The words rang in my heart. I knew in the dream it was a message for Israel and the Jewish people near future. The spiritual exodus has started when people come to know Yeshua here in Israel. It is again an exodus, a spiritual exodus. And I believe that has already started because we had those dreams and we know many other Jewish people who also had those dreams. It already has started. It is happening. And concerning the peace with Iran, I want to say one more little thing and then I will close off. Just a minute. It is right here. All right, there is a part in my book. It's on page 199, Israel and Iran. This is about what happened back then between Israel and Iran on 2015. Anybody who tells us nothing happens with the blood moons, it's not right. God moves during those signs in the heavens. We have all the miracles we experienced were during the biblical feasts and during the blood moons, and we had so many miracles happen then. It was incredible. And here in the book you can read it, and it gives proof of it. I want to close off with reading this part to you, and it's about the big feast we had in 2015. The pastor then got up and washed the feet of an Iranian and an Israeli, two people who God had miraculously brought to the Passover, who had come to know Yeshua supernaturally. Interestingly, it was during the same weekend that President Obama announced a nuclear deal with Iran, which many people see as a false peace endangering Israel, which it is. Meanwhile, we saw the meaning of true peace. Iranians were blessing Israelis, and Israelis were blessing Iranians in the name of Yeshua. We could not have planned it. It was God who called us together in his perfect timing through dreams and visions. On this evening, Israelis and Iranians praised Yeshua together, and they proclaimed and prophesied his victory and testified that true peace was possible through Yeshua. All right. Many blessings and Chag Sameach again, and goodbye. Bye. You guys